Good morning, Life Point. Oh, I got a sweat rag. This is great. Is this yours? Is it used yet? Okay, that's great. I'm not much of a sweater, but I feel like I might preach harder now that I have this with me. I'm so excited to be here. This is my first time in the new sanctuary. Everybody enjoying this? A little cozy. Anybody enjoying not having 3 services, all you serving? We'll see how long that lasts. Y'all are growing really quick. I hate to break it to you, but we'll see how long that lasts. So excited to be here. We've been partnering with you guys for 4 years, and you are a part of what you just saw. You are very much a part of all these 11 places we go to every year. And not only just as a partner church that gives, but we're seeing Life Point members going on trips. We had, I don't know if they're probably not here for both services, Corey, he was in the first service. He went to Mozambique in May on our Children's Day trip. We had, Nate, and then Corey went on our July Ecuador trip. And then we have Emily, she's been to Mozambique twice, and I know she's not here today because she's our intern in Chattanooga while she's going to college, and she's a big help to us, and she's helping day to day. Actually, she shows up at the office on days she's not interning. She just said, hey, can I come by and help today? So she's just such a great help, and so you guys are very much a part of the DNA and the ongoing work that we're doing around the world. And I'm inviting you to take another step into that this morning. If you've never heard of Far Flung, which I'm shocked at how many of you are new, have not heard of it, and I never give the explanation of what Far Flung Tin Can means, and then I spend the whole time when I'm at the booth, at the table, explaining it. So imagine the world's longest telephone call to the mission field. We want to create media and videos that feels like you have a relationship with those missionaries, like you've been on the phone with missionaries. And so I thought of those old tin can phones you made when you were a kid. And so this is a Far Flung Tin Can, the world's largest Far Flung Tin Can phone call to the mission field. That's what that means. And speaking of the table, I hate doing the push, but I've been instructed to give a push. We have these chickens there. And is this the what is it? Key West Ken? Key West Ken. We've got chickens out there. Essentially, we built a chicken coop for the feeding ministry in Mozambique because they were only getting chicken once a year at Christmas, and now they're getting it about once a week because of this chicken coop, and we're always having to buy more chicks. You can get a chick for $1, and so when you buy one of these for $20, you buy 20 chicks that then grow in 5 weeks. They sell half of them to an orphanage, bring in money for the ministry, and the other half they cook. So if you are okay with eating carnivorous foods and you want children to eat meat, then go buy one of these out there. That's what that goes toward. If you end up wanting to go on a trip at the end of this, you can find out our trip information on these cards that are out there. And we just got new merch literally for this service. And we have this shirt that says love your neighbor. There's another one out there that I didn't bring, and then there's this one that says send us out to the nations, and on the back it says tell the world he lives. Okay, so if you want to do that, there's my shameless plug that I hate doing, but it's out there. I would love to go back with less than 3 suitcases of luggage since I'm the only one traveling, so go get one. But I'm so excited to share that you get to go. We get to do this. We get to. We don't have to, but we get to travel around the world. We live in a time and an era where we can pretty much be anywhere in the world in 48 hours. 100 years ago, believers, it would take 3 months to get to some of the places we go to, and then 3 months back. You can literally, last year we dedicated a church in Mozambique. I didn't want to do another trip. I had already done 8 trips, and they were dedicating a church, and they said, you have to be here for this. So I told my wife, I have to be there for that. So she's like, you got 2 days. So literally within like 4.5 days, I got to Africa, cut a ribbon, and got back home. And Just 100 years ago, how could you explain that to someone? Like, there's no steamship that can go to Africa and back in that. So I don't think it's a coincidence that we are made and living in a time that the apostles didn't even have the accessibility that we have. The Lord designed you to be in this era where you could be anywhere in the world. I think it's on purpose. I think that there's something special about us living in this time and era, and we get to do that. And you're sending people out already. You're sending them to Mozambique. You're sending them to Ecuador. And I like to use the analogy that disciples are like ships that are filling their boats full of people that are going to go to heaven one day. And the church is a shipyard. And you're building all these ships, and some of them need repair, and some of them need built. And a shipyard is not meant to make ships just to stay in the harbor. Ships are meant to go out. And so as we are all becoming better and leaning closer to God and trusting Him more, He's building these ships to perfection to go out and load them full of more believers. That's how all of us got here today. It's because someone else discipled, and someone else discipled, and someone else discipled. That's what a disciple is. When Jesus is leaving earth, He says, oh, one more thing. Go into all the earth and make disciples of all men. He doesn't say make believers. What is the difference between a believer and a disciple? A disciple is someone who disciples someone, who disciples someone, who disciples someone. And that's why the gospel has been going for 2,000 years. Not because of believers, but because of disciples. Because the ships keep going out. And so I have been fixated on ships lately. And I want to tell you about a ship today called the Speedwell. Without Googling, raise your hand if you've ever heard of the ship, the Speedwell. Okay, there's like 4 of you. It was a beautiful ship with tons of destiny. And they built it to go on this great voyage in the 1600s. It was going to be loaded full of people, and it had this great call to go to uncharted lands. They spent a year building this ship, getting it ready for its purpose. All of us, the Lord is just building us and crafting us for great purpose, not for just our own lives, but for other people's lives. That's something that I've realized about me. Like, the Lord loves me so much and knows me so well, but He is crafting and pruning and trimming and cutting, not just for me, but because He wants me to share the knowledge of Jesus with others and the love of Jesus with others. He loves me so much that He is crafting and pruning and shaping because I have purpose outside of myself, outside of my own harbor. And the Lord is doing that with all of us. Flung is no stranger to boats. I spend more time on boats than I would like to. I don't really care about boats, but I'm in boats all the time. All the time. Last week, our team was on the floating islands of Peru. I've talked about the floating islands of Peru before, but to give you a quick recap, the Urus tribe have been in existence for 4,000 years in Peru at 12,000 feet in elevation. And at some point in their existence, the Mayans were attacking them, and they started to have an escape route. So they were like, let's build little islands on the lake that are attached to the shore. And when the Mayans come, we cut it, and we go, ha ha. And then eventually they were like, you know what? We could just live out here. And then now there's hundreds of man-made islands made of reed on the lake in Peru. And the Lord called us in 2019 to go to the highest city on earth, to a gold mining town, really dangerous. We go there, and just like the Lord does, He knows I'm not going to be able to hear Him that well, and He just kind of, you guys remember Mr. Magoo? I truly feel like that's how the Lord sees me. That like, Mr. Magoo was like a cartoon, and he was blind, and he was like, I have to go to the doctor today. And he'd end up like walking blindly through a construction site. He'd be weaving and dodging cars. He has no clue the calamity that is following him. And at the end of the episode, he ends up where he was supposed to be somehow. Okay, so that's what I do in missions. And the Lord wanted me to go to the highest city on earth, and he showed it to me in a documentary, and I was like, I got to go there. But really, when I was on a train in Peru, someone tells me about these floating islands, and I was like, sure, I'll go there. And now, the most expedited work we've ever seen in Flung has been on the floating islands. They went from being pagan to, after several visits, being saved. Instead of worshiping the goddess of the lake, they were worshiping Jesus. Then they were discipled. Then they said, would you build a floating church? Would you do this? Then we fed them through COVID. And they said, this is like, we're so grateful that you fed us for a year because no one else did. But more than that, thank you for bringing us the gospel. And then we expanded the church. Then we brought a Peruvian pastor missionary there who is going in a little boat and ministering to all of them. We do groceries throughout the months of the year to help with evangelism. And we brought a team last week, and we were able to bring medical. So a team of doctors from Lima flew across, and we brought them there, and they did medical. And then all of that happened, and it just continues to just be so fast. And none of that was the plan. The plan was to go to La Rinconada, the highest city on earth. But the Lord just kind of like goes, oh, here's this. He doesn't show me all the plans because he knows I'll just be like, okay, I'll go. That's why we leave a lot of flexibility in our schedules on the trips. We only plan about 75% of the trips because the Lord does these kind of random things so much, we want to leave room for him. And kind of a great mantra for your own life is to leave 25% of your life and your days open for what the Lord wants to interrupt. Because honestly, he writes a better story than you. And I would much rather not know the ending than just jump into the story he's writing. And so the team, this is what happened just last week. In between going to the highest city on earth and the floating islands of Peru, we started to add like a break day. It's a really hard trip. So we're like, let's just relax. So we found about this island called Tequila. Listen, it was an island called Tequila. It has nothing else to do with what they did. So they go to this island just to rest. It's a historic old island. 2,000 people live there. There's not a Protestant church there. Rich history. Everything's made of stone. And we just get an Airbnb for them to just sail there, rest, and then they go up to the gold mining town. Well, of course, the Lord just is always doing something. And the Airbnb host, the family, they all got saved. The grandparents, the parents, the kids, the whole family got saved, and then they followed them around the island for 24 hours because they were like, we've never felt this light. We've never felt this different. Like, we've been changed, and we don't know what's going on, so they wouldn't leave our team alone. And they were just like following them. Where are you going now? Oh, you going to lunch? Can we follow you? And so like they're quickly becoming believers, and who knows? I think maybe by the time we come here next year, we'll say we have planted a house church with this family. I don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to send the pastor from the floating islands to this island. And I'm just so excited that the Lord can just do all these things without us being in the planning meeting. And he just orchestrates these amazing, amazing events, and he does all the work and gets all the credit, and we get to just be along for the ride, like at the end of Mr. Magoo, like, oh, well, we did it. And so the team has been just sailing from island to island all last week. And when we go to the Amazon, we spend a lot of time on boats. We fly into Manaus, which is in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. Do you realize how big the Amazon rainforest is, by the way? It's about the size of the lower 48. Think about that. They call it the lungs of the earth because 80% of our oxygen is made in the Amazon rainforest. It is just a beast of wild terrain. I think it's my favorite place we go because I have the least amount of control. Can you tell I'm the agent of chaos? I have so many people that are always like, they're like control freaks, and they always say, just with Flung, like, I just let it go. I just know, like, some of our staff members are very much like orderly control freak people, and they're like, whatever it is, I have a grace with Flung, and know that I have no control. And we sail into Manaus, and then we sail 500 miles one way. It takes about a day and a half, 2 days, depending on the currents. And then we get into the little small boats, and the last 2 years that we've gone, they've been record-breaking droughts. They have not had a drought this dry in 100 years. Until last year, in 101 years, because it was even drier. We went through 11 boat motors last year. And every time our boat would break down, a non-believer would come rescue us. And we just had time to talk to them because they're trying to fix things. They didn't let us borrow their boat motor, and then they get saved. We were baptizing these fresh converts. After they saved us, then they got saved. And so we were just seeing the Lord do this crazy work, and it was so dry that this one village that we found, it's a crazy story I'm not even going to tell today, but we found this village in 2018, and then we planted a church, and then we built a church. We couldn't get to it. And we had to get out of the boats last year and push them to the village with all of our supplies in the boats. That's how dry it is. And so we finally made a decision. We're not going to let the drought stop us anymore because there were certain places we couldn't get to in the big boat. So we're going in the rainy season in a rainforest. I've never done that before, and I don't know how rainy it's going to be. So I know we're going to be wet, but we're going to get there. And so that's what matters. So in January, instead of October, now January, we head back to the Amazon. And this is the plan that I'm really excited for. Our church has outgrown itself. You guys know that problem. And so they've already expanded the concrete floor. They've already built a new roof. And they're saying, can you just build the walls? And it's $4,000 to build the walls, and I'm going to come up with it before we get there in January, and I'm going to cut that ribbon in January. When we built that church in this remote little village, the government then recognized them as an official village because they had a church. So then they brought them solar. And they started to bring them more things and recognize it. It's so funny, like the physical change that happens. Because there's a church, the government recognized them and now is helping them, and they're becoming a lighthouse. And they don't have fresh water. So last year they were saying, if you could build them a well, they wouldn't have to travel all the way down to the river, which has dirty water, and it's not sanitary. They're having to boil it, and they're like, we really need a well. So they said, it's going to be $4,000 to dig a well. So I raised $4,000, and then they didn't dig a well. And I was like, what's going on? They said, well, we were going to pay a company to sail 500 miles and dig one well, or we can train our people on the ground, buy $11,000 worth of equipment, and dig endless wells. I was like, I'm in it. So we're trying to, I don't know if we'll get there, but my goal is that I'm going to fundraise $11,000. I've already fundraised $4,000 to get all that equipment, and I'm hoping that I'm going to have a bunch of video of us digging wells in the Amazon. And you're going to see me in a construction hat. Like, I don't even know what that means to dig a well. I don't know. It's going to be a photo op, but I mean, look, if I raise the money, let me take the picture and just do something. Because otherwise, like, it would just be a picture of me, like, on the phone asking for money. That's not like a great photo op. So let me act like I'm digging the well, okay? So we're going to, however that is, we're going to dig a well, and it's going to be awesome. And we're either going to go village to village, digging wells, providing clean water. And it is such a gateway for the gospel because they've never seen such free giving. They've never seen a love like that where they're saying, hey, we care about your salvation, but we care about your time on earth now. And every time they go to that well, they're going to remember the people that shared this message. They're going to know that it's truth because they came here and gave and asked for nothing. They're going to come here and they were strangers and they loved us like they were our brothers. And they're going to go, maybe they were telling the truth. And then someone else is going to come to that village and go, hey, we have a well. Where'd you get a well? Well, these people came. And they're going to start telling, and they're going to make disciples who make disciples who make disciples. So I know some people are like, I don't really care about the social projects. I care about the church builds. But they're all connected. They're all connected. And so in January, and we have some spots left on that trip. If you want to be on a boat for 10 days, I can get you on one. If you would like to be in soaking wet rain for 10 days, I can do that. There are showers on the boat, and I am reluctant to say that It took me 6 days to realize that the water was coming from the river. Like, I just didn't realize that we were swimming in the Amazon River one day, and I saw like the water spitting out the back and being sucked back up, and I was like, oh, that's why I don't feel clean. Also, like, it's so hot and humid that you feel clean for like 10 minutes. And then you're just like humid again. And I know I'm selling this trip. There's only like 10 spots, guys. But we're going to be on this boat, and that's why you're going, why are you so fixated on this boat from the 1600s? Because I spend way too much time on boats that I'm now thinking about all these different types of boats in history. And the Speedwell, they're building it. They spend a year. They build all the sails and the masts, and they have these plans, and it's going to be comfortable. It's going to be nice. And it has this great plan. And what do? They get the people on it. They leave the harbor, and it has leaks. And so they do a U-turn, and they go back, and they try to fix the leaks. They go back out. It's got leaks again. And they're like, well, we just don't want to risk it. This is such a nice boat. And they end up going, you know what? We've got the nice big boat, and then we have like a little merchant boat that's going to carry all the supplies. Let's just put everybody in the merchant boat. And they're not going to be comfortable, but we're not going to send it out. And so this boat that was built for destiny, that was built for these great stories, it was built for something greater than the harbor, never leaves. And most of you have never heard of it. And it misses its purpose and its calling because people don't want to risk some leaks in their boat. And I'm here to tell you something. The Lord sometimes provides you with leaky boats. That's faith. It's like the difference between faith and believing. The Lord is calling you to faith. It's what I love and hate the most about Christianity. I love the concept of faith. It's beautiful. I don't like the practice of faith. Because I'm constantly put in situations where I have to go through 11 boat motors. And then the Lord sets up these situations where I see salvation after salvation after salvation. He puts me in these situations where I don't know the end of the story. And I have to take these quote-unquote risks. And it's really frustrating because you don't know. Every story that I'm going to tell you today, like, it's easy at this part. You get to hear abbreviated. But a lot of these take years. And I sit here for years wondering, does this story have the ending that gets told in a service? But that's what most of my life is that waiting. It's sowing. It's patiently waiting. And there's leaks, and I'm sometimes tossing the bucket out, and I'm fundraising, and I feel like I'm in a leaky boat, tossing the bucket out. But the boat always makes it to the destination as long as I get in it. And the Lord is inviting you out of the harbor this morning. Would you trust God to get in a boat that is leaky? Or would you just never leave the shore? I found myself in a boat a few months ago. So someone invited me to Kenya 3 years ago. And he said, would you come do a youth conference in Kenya? And it didn't feel right, and I said no. And he came back 3 months later, and he goes, hey, the Kenya conference fell through. Would you come do a youth conference and lead worship in Togo? And for whatever reason, it's just like, yep, that feels right. Okay, I'll come. And then I was like, where is Togo? Oh, West Africa. Okay, that sounds cool. And so we go, and I have a specific rider, as they put it. Like, I have a specific need. If you want me to come speak at a conference, because I don't want to speak at a conference. Conferences are nice and great. I don't want to do it. I want to go somewhere where you can't have a conference. I want to go somewhere where there's 30 people, and you can't. That's a retreat. That's a service. And so I said, I will come to your conference. I will fundraise to bring a band and singers, and it's going to be beautiful. There's going to be lots of salvations, and there's going to be healings. It's going to be awesome. But you have to put me in a village that could never have a conference because they're unreached. And he's like, okay, we can maybe work that out. I was like, no, I will not come until you tell me what village we're going to. I said, okay. I think he was, used to dealing with people that, want to stay at the Marriott. And I was like, no, I got to be in a village. And I was like, this guy's nuts. Okay. So he lines it up. We're going to go to these villages. And then I started doing some research. And 3 hours from Togo is a country called Benin. Never heard of Benin. It's a small country. It's the birthplace of voodoo. And I start researching it. I'm like, let's go. Let's do this. Then they're like, I told someone I was going. They're like, yeah, you should go to Ganvi. What's Ganvi? They're like, oh, you would love it. It's a floating village. I was like, I got so mad because my heart leapt, which I was like, oh yes, I should go. And I was like, oh, come on. I feel like the Lord keeps typecasting me to floating villages. I'm like, come on, I do really good on land. You should see what I could do on land. So in the 1700s, one of the main ports in Africa that people were being sold into slavery was in Benin. And there was a certain tribe of people that as they were selling people, there is a monument there. It's called the Gate of No Return, where people were put into ships and never returned. And there was a certain tribe that said, you're not selling us. I'm not getting on that ship. And then so they believed in that culture that there was protection on water. And so a group of people went onto a lake, built houses on stilts, and named it Ganvier in French and their dialect, and it means we survived. And 300 years later, there's 40,000 people still living on that lake, one of the birthplaces of voodoo. And I asked our contacts, have you ever heard of Ganvier? They're like, yeah, we've been there a few times. They're like, we actually want to build a church there. There's no open door. I was like, I feel like we're supposed to go there and buy groceries and go house to house, boat to boat, and just pray for people. I don't know if we'll ever come back here again. That's how I felt about Peru too. I said, I don't know, this might be a one-time thing. I went and visited Machu Picchu because I'm like, I don't know if we'll ever come back to this country. Now we've been 7 times. But I want to go there one time, at least, and minister. And Lord, I don't know what the Lord's doing, but it feels right. So I said, yes, we will go there in 3 years. Typically, if we decide to go to a new place, it's 3 or 4 years in advance. We have places that I know we're supposed to go to, and we'll go there in 3 or 4 years. So I've been sitting on this feeling that we're supposed to go there for 3 years, hoping it's not a waste of time and money. And so in September, we went. We had the conference. It was great. And then we went to villages. Then we drove to Benin. And we went into a market and bought a bunch of groceries. And then we hired a tour guide on a boat. There's 12 of us on this boat. I said, he is, oh, you have 2.5 hours. I said, we just want to go house to house and pray for people. He's like, oh, okay. So he gives the history. Cool. Then he takes us to a gift shop. I'm like, okay. I'm looking at the clock. Took 30 minutes to get out on this lake. We're down to 2 hours. Takes us to a gift shop full of voodoo. I'm like, I'm not bringing voodoo gift shop things home to my family. So I'm like, okay, looking around. I'm like, I'm not buying any of this. And then he takes us to another gift shop. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's been an hour and a half. So then he's like, all right, we'll give you more time. And I'm looking at the guide. I'm going, we need to get this ball going. So the guide goes, well, 40,000 people live out here. It's divided up into regions. One of the regions, my uncle's a chief. Okay. He's like, he said he'd gather some people together and you can talk to them. I'm like, okay, great. We get there. People are showing up. Then 2 other chiefs show up with his people. Now all of a sudden we're on this rickety dock with 70 people ready to hear the gospel. And so we start sharing the gospel. And they said that we sang a song. They're like, okay, go ahead. And I'm like, this is just a bunch of people who believe in voodoo, who have never seen us before, and now what do you say? And so I stood up there on this floating dock in a floating civilization in the middle of West Africa, and I went, there is a floating civilization across the world in Peru, much like this one, of people that are hurting, who believe in things that don't help them. And our God called us to go there and love on them and bring them groceries. And they listened, and we watched the Lord move and start to heal them and transform their lives. And that's what I shared with them. And I'm going to show a video of what happened. Essentially, the chief pulled me aside after everybody got on the boat and talked to me, and I didn't tell the team until we got on the bus. And so what you're going to see is me talking on the bus, and you'll see some footage of the floating islands in South America, and then you're going to see what happened that day in Africa. So when we went to the floating island, we started evangelizing. We saw some people were converting, and it was good. And then COVID happened. We couldn't go. And so the only way that they buy groceries is because they make handicrafts, and then they sail for 2 hours, sell it in the market, and then they can buy oil. And so during COVID, they couldn't do that for a year. So for a year, we fed 70 families. We would buy the groceries and send them. So when COVID's over, we go there, and there's a bunch of them meeting on the island, and the chief of the region is thanking us. Our own government forgot us. No one fed us, no one helped. Your organization are the only people that helped us. But so he's like, thank you for that. He said, but more than that, more than the food and the groceries, thank you for bringing us the gospel. And then he goes on to say in that same breath, we have to travel for 2 hours to go to church. I'll give you a plot of land here, a floating plot of land, if you'll build a floating church. And that's how we started that. Obviously, there's a lot of parallels from there and here. That's kind of why I shared what I did, because there is that. After we handed out the food, we were speaking with the chief. The chief and 2 other chiefs. The chief's like, thank you so much for doing that. Thank you for the groceries, but more than that, thank you for bringing us the Word of God. We really need it here. We need local presence. We need discipleship. So he said, I would like to donate a plot of land here if you'll build us a floating church.
Just now?
Yes. Benin said, yes, we'll pastor it. So they'll likely send a pastor to live here, but he was like, we need the presence of a pastor. We need discipleship. We really need the Word of God. That area, that community doesn't have anything going on there. We saw some empty churches being built in some other areas. Just because there's a church does not mean that there's a church. So many places will build for the sake of having the check mark, and then they don't actually have anything on the ground. So we're mapping out what that looks like, but we planted a church today. Because I felt like the Lord told me to go to Togo and Benin for 3 years in the making, and I'm like, I don't know why I'm going. And he knew all along that this was the end. But he doesn't share those in stories with us because he wants us to act in faith and just step out. And now we're building this floating church. And I had the idea of building housing up on top to put an Airbnb, because there is some tourism in that area, and the pastor can host and have a second income to help the pastor, and he can be the guide instead of someone who's into voodoo. The pastor is the guide of tourists, and he's bringing people to that region, bringing in income to those areas. And then when we bring teams, we're not staying in some house in the city. We're staying on the water with people, connecting with them, building relationships. And so my goal is that we're going to have this church built and cutting that ribbon when we go and return in August of next year. And if you want to go and be part of that dedication, you can sign up and join us in Benin. There are so many testimonies. I can't tell you all the stories of what happened, but we went to places like the Arctic, and they hadn't had a worship service, a little village of 250 people. They said, this woman came up to me crying. She said, I prayed and prayed that you would return so we could have a worship service. Because we do it in the school gym and everybody's invited. I said, when was the last time you did it? She goes, when you were here. I said, that was 2 years ago. This community did not have a public worship for 2 years. And she said, I prayed you here. We built 2 churches. We built one in the jungles of Thailand and one in the jungles of the Philippines. I mean, there's just countless testimonies of what the Lord is doing, and I had to pick and choose just a few that are on my heart this morning. But the Lord is calling us to more than our own safe harbors. And for the Speedwell, it had destiny, it had purpose, but it wasn't willing to take the risk of leaks, so they ended up all cramming in the merchant boat with the supplies, and they didn't have beds. It wasn't comfortable. It was weeks of traveling in the hull of this ship, but they made it. And that little merchant ship was called the Mayflower. And it ends up being one of the most consequential ships in history, and it wasn't the first pick. It wasn't the one that was reliable, but it's the one that went. And that's how I kind of feel about the places we go to, the places that have never heard the gospel for thousands of years. I know that the Lord has called people for thousands of years, and no one's went. That's the heart of Far Flung. If you were like, what is it? Like, what's your niche? What is the anchor, the North Star? What is it about Far Flung? It's, we believe his name will be known in every people group, and then the end will come. We know that there are people groups that for thousands of years, people have said it's not worth it to go there. It costs too much money, it's dangerous, it takes too long, it's not gonna work, blah, 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 blah. Those are the ones that we want. The places you can't have a conference. If it takes 3 days to get there and you're ministering to 30 people, I love it. And our end game, our end goal, as we grow and get to do bigger and bigger things, it's so that we can go further and smaller. We are growing as an organization, and we're able to do these huge things. The Lord's opening up all these doors, and I'm constantly reminding our team, these are awesome, but these are just used so that we can keep going where the rivers are getting drier. We want to go to the streams where nobody's going to go to, and then we have to walk on land and go there. As we get bigger, it's so that we can go further. And I know I'm not the first one that God's called, but I was willing to say yes, and he was like, all right, the videographer wants to go. There's literally no one else. There's not like any like pastors. No, not the video guy. Yeah, okay, all right, send him. Is this the guy that does like TikTok videos and he sings to DoorDash drivers? Yeah, he wants to go to the, all right, do it before he changes his mind. I was looking at some pictures for these slides, and I went through this album of the Amazon from 2018, and there's this photo that always captivates me when I see this picture. One of our team members took it as we were passing through. It's this photo here of this little boy in a ship that is not seaworthy. And I've never showed this photo before, but I look at it. Whenever I go through the album, I stop and look at it, and it always resonates with me. And I've never preached on ships before, and when I saw this photo the other day, and I was like, I want to show this because I think people see me as this nut that goes around the world, and people, someone, one of my close friends, like, you're the most fearless person I know. And I went, me? Like, what are you talking about? He's like, I'm not fearless because I'm freaked out a lot. I just go anyways. I'm courageous. You know the difference? Courageous means you're afraid, but you still do it. But this photo's always resonated with me because that's how I feel. I feel like with what I do, and I go to these places that are just, I'm way over in and over my head. If I wanted to really show you a picture of how like in a therapy session here, that's how I feel. I feel like a little boy in a boat that's not seaworthy. And the Lord's calling us to do things that are scary. Not just for your own good, but because people have been waiting. The people on the floating islands in Peru, they've been in existence for 4,000 years worshiping the goddess of the lake. Well, not now. 4,000 years. It took two visits before we saw a first conversion. How many generations of people could have been saved and in that boat headed to heaven if someone just would have went? And we all play a part in this story where we're just trying to bring God's love around the world. And some of you can't physically travel, but you've been giving for 4 years. And like, I can be willing to go all I want, but if someone doesn't send me, I literally can't go. I haven't reached the part of like sanctification that I figured out teleportation. I want to reach that because, oh my gosh, that would be so awesome. If he was like, what superpower would you want? I would love to be able to just transport and not fly. Get out of these boats. I love the scripture that says, how then can they call on someone that they've never heard of? How can they hear someone unless they've been preached to? How then can someone preach if they don't go? How then can they go if they are not sent? We all have a part in that storyline. I'm willing to go and preach, but someone has to send. They're calling on Jesus because someone sent someone who then preached the gospel to them. And I truly believe that the Lord has something for all of us bigger than ourselves. And some of you have been struggling with that. Like, I feel like I'm supposed to just go. And they hear a sermon or they see a video, they're like, I need to go. And then there's a million reasons to not go because the boats are leaky. And I promise you they're always going to be leaky. Here's a 1-minute extra bonus boat story. In the 1500s, Cortez, the Spaniard, had been trying to conquer the Aztecs. For 100 years, they tried to conquer the Aztecs. No one could do it. Too big of an empire. So legend says that he brought his ships. They sailed to Mexico. He got all of his men on the beach. They're all terrified. They're going to kill us. We're not going to make it. We're not going to conquer them. We're going to have to just be like every other conqueror and get back in the ships and go home. So Cortez, who's a little crazy, tells his first officer, go burn the ships. Burn every ship we brought here. He burns them. And so as all of the soldiers are standing there on the beach watching their fleet burn as they're on a foreign sand, he says, well, we either conquer or we die now, but we're not going home. And he conquered the Aztecs. And so for someone here this morning who's been struggling, going, I feel like there's more in my life. I'm supposed to evangelize locally. I'm supposed to be getting involved in my church. I'm supposed to go across the world of the nations. I'm supposed to give towards something bigger than myself. But for whatever reason, I keep sailing back home. I encourage you this morning to burn the ships and fight. Because they are waiting for you, whether they know it or not. And you have an invitation to go on an adventure with God who can write something better than you can ever imagine. And you're going, I don't even know how this works. I don't know this end of it. Like me, Mr. Magoo, I don't know the end of any of these stories. He He does not give me that luxury. But man, it's so fun to live out the end of them when you walk out on faith and you see, oh my gosh, Lord, of course you were going to do this. It's unlike anything you can ever imagine. And the Lord is calling you to leave the harbor and fill the ships with new souls, whether it's giving or going. Would you stand? I just want to give an opportunity to pray with you and believe with you for if the Lord is dealing with you, if you feel that urgency and you're just like, my heart, maybe it's like me when it was like, oh, floating village, your heart leaps, and then it also is like, Lord, what are you doing? I just want to pray with you and say, yeah, the Lord's doing something greater than yourselves. It's bigger than you. It is impossible, and we serve an impossible God. If the Lord's dealing with you to extend what you are doing, extend your reach, would you come down? And I just want to pray and believe that the Lord is writing your story, and all you're doing is being an active participant in what the Lord has already been writing. It's not just your story that he's writing, it's someone else's, but you are an essential part of it. So come down. I'm going to pray, and if that is for you, you come down and I'll pray and agree with you. Lord, I just ask you, Lord, that you would continue to work in the hearts of your people, Lord. Lord, would you guide our hearts this morning? Lord, guide our steps to places that we've never seen before. Lord, give us a heart for your heart. Lord, let our hearts break for those things that are so far away, but you care about them. I just pray that you would continue to guide us with your Spirit, Jesus. Lord, let us play a part in history so that we can further the gospel in places that have been waiting for the knowledge of the glory of Jesus to touch those places. Thank you, Jesus.